What does it feel like to be deep underground, surrounded by darkness with no way out? 3 cavers entered Laurel Creek Cave seeking adventure, but they found themselves trapped in a life-or-death situation. Sudden floods blocked their only exit. With freezing water rising around them, they were forced to climb to higher ground, hoping for rescue. Imagine the fear, the cold, and the darkness pressing in as every second felt like an eternity. How did they survive 31 hours trapped beneath the earth? Stay with us as we uncover this harrowing story of courage, survival, and an incredible rescue. Welcome to an exciting exploration of Laurel Creek Cave, located in the unincorporated community of Laurel Creek in Fayette County, West Virginia. This small coal town gets its name from the nearby Laurel Creek, a picturesque stream that plays a crucial role in shaping the landscape and the caves beneath it. The creek and its underground journey are what make this area a fascinating destination for cave enthusiasts and nature lovers alike. Laurel Creek flows through a unique geological feature known as the Laurel Creek Basin. This basin is part of an isolated outcrop of Greenbrier limestone, which lies to the southwest of the main Greenbrier karst. Karst landscapes are known for their distinctive features such as sinkholes, underground rivers, and caves. Over millions of years, water from Laurel Creek has carved out an intricate network of caves as it flows through the limestone, creating natural wonders hidden beneath the surface. One of the highlights of the region is Laurel Creek Cave, a natural passageway formed by the constant erosion of the limestone by water. As you venture inside, you'll discover stunning rock formations, including stalactites and stalagmites, as well as delicate mineral deposits. The cave's passage is part of a larger underground system that includes Rimstone Crossroads Cave and Greenville Saltpeter Cave. These caves were formed in nearly flat rock layers near the crest of the Abbs Valley Anticline, a geological fold that adds to the complexity and beauty of the cave system. The underground path of Laurel Creek is not just visually impressive, but also holds historical significance. In the early days of settlement, caves like these were often used for extracting saltpeter, a key ingredient in making gunpowder. Greenville Saltpeter Cave, as its name suggests, was likely mined for this purpose during the 18th and 19th centuries. Exploring Laurel Creek Cave offers a unique opportunity to witness the power of nature and the artistry of time. The cool, damp air and the sound of trickling water create a serene atmosphere as you wander through its corridors. Whether you're an experienced caver or just curious about the underground world, Laurel Creek Cave invites you to step into a hidden realm where geology, history, and nature come together in an unforgettable way. Join us as we delve into this underground wonder, where every twist and turn reveals a new secret of the earth beneath our feet. On a warm Saturday afternoon, June 12th, 3 eager cavers from Maryland arrived at Laurel Creek Cave in Monroe County, West Virginia. They were excited to explore the hidden wonders beneath the earth as they had done many times before in other caves. Each of them was passionate about caving, drawn by the thrill of venturing into the unknown, the mystery of winding tunnels, and the beauty of underground formations. They had parked their car near the cave's entrance, ready for what they thought would be a routine adventure. The cavers had traveled from Maryland, known for its active caving community. One of them, a seasoned explorer with years of experience, had often shared stories about the magnificent caves he had explored across the Appalachian region. For the others, it was a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. They knew that Laurel Creek Cave had its challenges, especially with its entrance being a stream inlet that could flood, but they felt prepared. Little did they know, nature had other plans that day. They entered the cave at around 2 p.m., feeling the rush of cool, damp air and the thrill of the unknown. As they stepped inside, the sound of a small stream echoed through the rocky corridors, creating a mysterious and thrilling atmosphere. They carefully moved deeper into the cave, their headlamps lighting the dark passageways. The cave was breathtaking. Stalactites, hanging from the ceiling like ancient chandeliers, glittered in the soft glow of their lamps. The cool, damp air was a refreshing break from the summer heat outside. It felt like stepping into another world, one filled with natural beauty and adventure. However, something that they couldn't see was happening above ground. While they explored the cave's depths, heavy rain began to fall outside. The rain turned the small stream near the cave entrance into a raging torrent. The stream swelled rapidly and water poured into the cave. The entrance, once a calm pathway, became a dangerous flood zone. The cavers, deep inside, had no idea at first. They were still enjoying their exploration until they decided to head back. And that's when they discovered the terrifying truth. The entrance was blocked by rushing water, completely submerged. They were trapped. Panic set in. The sound of the rushing water was deafening, echoing through the cave. The once thrilling adventure now felt like a nightmare. One of the cavers accidentally stepped into neck-deep water, and the icy shock forced them to fully understand the danger. It felt claustrophobic. The walls seemed to close in, and the cold, dark water felt like it was everywhere. One of the cavers, more experienced than the others, took control and urged calm. He reminded them to stay focused. Together, they decided to climb to higher ground. They made their way to a larger chamber called the theater room, where they hoped they would be safe and could wait for rescue. Outside, things were just as tense. Bob Rolls, the cave owner, noticed that the stream near the entrance was flooding. He saw the caver's car partially submerged in water. Immediately, he knew something was wrong. He called the Monroe County Sheriff, who then contacted Bob Liebman, a well-known and skilled cave rescuer. Liebman quickly assembled a team of experienced cavers. They knew the situation was critical, but they also realized that they couldn't do much until the floodwaters decreased. They would have to wait until morning, when the water levels would hopefully drop enough for a rescue attempt. As the rain stopped and the water began to retreat, the rescuers prepared for a daring mission. By Sunday morning, the top of the caver's car was visible again, a sign that the flood was slowly going down. The team decided to enter the cave through the hilltop entrance, a secondary opening that led to the main passage. At 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, the rescue team entered the cave through the hilltop entrance. The passages were still partially flooded, but the water level was dropping quickly. They set up a lifeline, a strong rope to guide them, and extended a phone line as far as possible to stay in communication. By 6:25 p.m., 3 rescuers in wetsuits were ready for the final push. They waded through the cold, dark water, moving carefully. The air was thick, and at some points there was only a foot of airspace between the water and the cave's ceiling. It was exhausting, and every step was a fight against the icy water in the narrow tunnels. Suddenly, they heard voices. It was the trapped cavers. Relief washed over the rescuers. They had made contact. The trapped cavers were cold, wet, and tired, but otherwise unharmed. The rescuers quickly gave them life vests and prepared to guide them out. The escape was slow and difficult. They moved in pairs, rescuer and caver, pulling themselves along the rope. The water was freezing, the cave passages narrow, and the walls felt like they were closing in. It was dark, and the journey out felt endless. But they didn't give up. Every breath felt precious, and every step brought them closer to safety. One by one, they made it through the narrow, water-filled passages. The first caver emerged just before 8 p.m., followed by the others. Each of them, though exhausted, climbed out of the cave on their own. They were finally safe after spending over 31 terrifying hours trapped underground. The rescue was a remarkable success. The cavers had endured one of the most frightening experiences imaginable. Their courage and the skill of the rescue team saved their lives. They were grateful to be back up on solid ground, thankful for the bravery of those who had risked their lives to save theirs. It was unclear what the weather was like when the group first entered the cave. However, the water rose quickly, likely due to an unexpected thunderstorm. This sudden flooding trapped the cavers before they could escape. Situations like this could often be avoided by carefully checking weather forecasts before exploring caves. Thankfully, the group stayed in the upper levels of the cave. If they had been in the lower sections, the outcome could have been much worse. They made a smart decision by staying calm and waiting for the floodwaters to go down. Their patience and the quick actions of the rescue team saved their lives, turning a terrifying experience into a story of survival and courage. Laurel Creek Cave, with its stunning formations and hidden passages, continues to attract adventurers. But the tale of the 31-hour rescue stands as a solemn warning of the cave's potential perils, a reminder that even the most experienced explorers must respect the forces of nature. In July of 2022, over 365,000 pilgrims were venturing on a dangerous trek into a holy site deep within a cave, when their religious journey was suddenly thrown into chaos as heavy rain took them all by surprise. The Indian government underwent a days-long effort to save as many lives as they could, but the caving world is still reeling from this disaster. This is the story of the Amarnath Cave rescue. The story of Amarnath starts in one of the largest countries in the world, India. India has a storied history dating back thousands of years, and it's fast on the heels of China to become the country with the largest population in the world. India's northern border is home to the most awe-inspiring mountain range in the world, the Himalayas. There are vast cave networks throughout this entire region which have been virtually unexplored due to political tensions in the region. But that hasn't stopped scientists and groups like the Himalayan Cave Club from exploring and cataloging the details of Himalayan caves. In the Nepalese portion of the Himalayas, archaeologists recently discovered over 10,000 prehistoric man-made caves carved into stone, while many more caves are off-limits to splunkers and explorers because they're holy sites for various religions. Amarnath is one of the most sacred of all the caves in India, and one of the most legendary caves in the entire world, but it's also one of the most deadly. The Blue Hole in Egypt's Red Sea holds the record for the most fatalities claimed inside a single cave. But if you count the trip to and from a cave, the unassuming Amarnath dwarfs all other caves in the world, with a death toll over 3 times as much as the Blue Hole, making it the deadliest cave of all time. Why is Amarnath so deadly? And what happened to the hundreds of thousands of explorers trapped there earlier this year? The Amarnath Cave is nestled in the Litter Valley, formed by the Litter River as it cut through the Himalayas over time. But Amarnath is special because of a unique formation formed in the lower regions of the cave. Near the end of Amarnath's surveyed region stands a large pillar of ice. This ice is naturally shaped like a traditional representation of the Hindu god Shiva. Known as the god of destruction, Shiva is one of the most revered deities in India and the entire world. Over 15% of the planet follows Hinduism, making the faith the 4th most common in the world. And Shiva is one of the most revered deities in Hinduism. Followers of Shiva will often live ascetic lifestyles. They may eat vegan or vegetarian diets, live and practice yoga or meditation in low-oxygen environments like in mountainous caves. And some may choose to give up worldly possessions and roam the countryside to remain pure. Amarnath is famous for this ice shrine, and pilgrims from around the world travel to the cave to pray before it. This ice shrine is a naturally occurring stalagmite. Normally, these structures are formed out of minerals, but this one is pure ice. The ice grows and shrinks throughout the year depending on the seasons. At its peak, this ice shrine was 20 feet tall. but it's been shrinking every year, causing concern for Hindus and the Indian government. The Indian government has sponsored many surveys into the ice structure to determine the factors that impact its size in order to preserve it. They believe that water levels from outside the cave play a major role, and the body heat from the hundreds of thousands of pilgrims who visit the cave annually also causes the ice to melt and change shape. Unlike many caves in the US, or the caves deep underwater, Amarnath is located high in the mountains. One of the peaks also shares the name Amarnath. The entrance to Amarnath Cave stands tall at 12,760 feet above sea level. Here, the temperatures can average around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, adding to the harsh climate and unique challenge of venturing into Amarnath. The interior of the cave is roughly 130 feet tall at its highest point, and it's mostly made from limestone and gypsum. Amarnath also has rare karst formations. Karsts are almost always made from limestone and dolomite. Gypsum karsts are much more rare, and certain compositions of gypsum karsts are known as alabaster, a white stone revered for its use in artwork and sculptures. Amarnath has a massive entrance with an almost perfectly rectangular mouth that's 120 feet wide and roughly 75 feet tall. The entrance continues 80 feet down into the first main chamber of the cave. Above the entrance, the top portion of the mountain is mostly flat, which adds more character to this already unique cave. Some geologists have speculated that the nearby Lake Sheshnag played a vital role in forming Amarnath Cave. In the past, heavy rain created grooves in the mountains, which allowed runoff from the peaks to pool together, which eventually formed Lake Sheshnag. This lake is located along the pilgrimage pathway, and it drains into the Litter River in the valley where Amarnath Cave is located. It's been exceedingly difficult for cavers and researchers to explore Amarnath since the sanctity of the site is kept off limits from geologists who want to study the area. But in recent years, there has been some progress in mapping the cave, and reports from the Indian government have also confirmed an underground lake in the Amarnath Cave. In the past, geologists speculated that the ice stalagmite had been formed by water running down from glaciers and ice deposits around the valley, or from runoff from the ice-capped Amarnath Peak. But now it seems likely that the holy site was formed by flowing water from an underground lake. Amarnath Cave's history predates recorded history. The earliest mentions of the cave were passed down through stories and legends. In the lore, Amarnath Cave was discovered by a wise sage named Brigu as far back as the year 1100, or the 12th century Common Era. This lore describes how Hindus traveled to the cave for prayer. In the legends, Shiva met with his wife Parvati in Amarnath and told her the secrets of life and death. Along with the main ice stalagmite, there are two other naturally formed ice structures in Amarnath, one that represents Parvati and the other that represents their son, Ganesha. The name Amarnath roughly translates to Immortal Lord, another name for Shiva. Recently, another origin story emerged saying a shepherd named Bhutta Malik discovered Amarnath. The accuracy of either story is hard to pin down, but the earliest historical accounts state that a king was imprisoned in Amarnath, and eventually the king was executed as guards drowned him in the icy waters of the cave, marking the first of many lives to be claimed by Amarnath. In 1663, French doctor François Bernier wrote about his visit to the Amarnath Cave, marking the first time Western civilization heard of the strange cave. The ancient tradition of journeying to Amarnath for prayer is known as a yatra. Every year, during the 45-day period of the yatras from June 30th to August 15th, roughly 500,000 people journey to Amarnath. Elderly travelers go by horseback, but many believers each make the trip on foot as part of their pilgrimage. More traditional Hindus might take the route from the city of Srinagar, which is a 60-mile walk, while some prefer to walk the shorter route from the smaller town of Pahalgam, which is a 26-mile hike. Visitors to the cave can also travel by bus or take a direct route by helicopter. Unlike true splunking, these cavers don't bring traditional caving gear, but they do have to pack hard-to-spoil food like cheese, dried fruits, and granola, soap, toilet paper, medicine or first aid packs, warm clothes, 2 pairs of shoes, multiple pairs of socks, and usually a walking stick for the mountainous portion of the journey. The journey takes days, so large encampments are formed along the Litter Valley of the mountain. During the yatras, or pilgrimage, nearly 10,000 people come in and out of Amarnath every single day. While Amarnath is revered and even considered sacred, it's It's been the site of hundreds of deaths over the years. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, pilgrims were already journeying to Amarnath, but they lacked the knowledge and technology of today. In 1928, a pair of scholars noted that roughly 600 people died trying to enter Amarnath. These unlucky adventurers succumbed to bacterial infections or by exposure to the elements. Even though they weren't trapped, they were days away from civilization at a time when medicine wasn't even close to what we have today. Amarnath's death toll has slowed down, but it continues to claim more lives almost every year. Amarnath is located in the Kashmir and Jammu regions of India, and legislators in these areas put extra effort into safety of this year's Amarnath Yatra. Massive tent encampments were set up by government officials ahead of time to give pilgrims enough shelter and rest along the way. They set up 8 of these camps along the route to Amarnath. They made a small 100-bed hospital in a nearby town to account for any lingering effects of the pandemic. And 25 communication towers were built along the route that transmitted cell phone service to the remote mountain pass, allowing officials to provide weather reports to the pilgrims. A diversion wall was also erected to prevent floods inside the cave from overflowing into the valley. Amit Shah, Union Home Minister of India, even completed an inspection to go the extra mile. This year, the Indian government took the yatra more seriously than ever before, with many steps to ensure the safety of the travelers. However, all of their efforts were in vain because Mother Nature is unstoppable. On July 8th, 2022, pilgrims were slowly and silently entering the huge earthen canopy of Amarnath when the sky outside suddenly darkened. The sound of rain came first. The sudden roar of a storm broke the silence as the view from the entrance became blocked by walls of rain. Inside, water levels began to rise. But visitors were mostly safe because the sheer size of the main chamber of the cave makes it difficult to flood. Chaos erupted in the silent zone of the cave as people saw what was happening outside: a flood. Amarnath's water had spilled out in a different path and was heading straight for the thousands of people in the Litter Valley. Thousands of people outside Amarnath were caught in a cloudburst. Even normal amounts of rain can quickly turn into deadly floods deep within the small confines of caves. But this flood burst through outside of the cave. Normally, rain clouds reach a critical point where they begin to lose water. But when clouds meet fast-moving, very hot air currents, the normal rainfall process gets disrupted. In what's known as orographic lift, instead of moisture freely flowing down as rain, the warm front creates a barrier, blocking the rain from falling. The clouds rise in altitude, allowing more time for condensation to build up more rain. And when the warm front loses momentum or cools down, the floodgates are unleashed. The sheer mountainside created the perfect place for this orographic lift to occur, right along the path the pilgrims were traveling. Normal rainfall dumps a lot of water, roughly 20,000 tons per square mile, but the precipitation rate is often slow and predictable. Cloudbursts can suddenly dump up to 65,600 tons of water per square mile of land, nearly 3 times as much rain as a regular rainstorm in much less time. Along with all the other preparations for the yatras, the irrigation and flood control departments constructed a boundary wall in case of flooding within the cave. This wall should have stopped any flooding from reaching the pilgrims. But even the best couldn't predict this flood. It only took moments for the flood to break through the diversion wall and sweep through Amarnath and down the mountainside. A full river of water came barreling toward the pilgrims, who were now mostly lined up along a walkway. Years of devotion by millions of people formed the perfect path of least resistance for the flood as it swept through nearly the whole ranks of the pilgrimage. Those lucky few who were further down managed to walk up the sheer sides of the mountain as best as they could, but the rocky elevated portions of the mountain were far away from the pathway, and the dirt and rock became slippery as the path started to break down and send chunks of rock and dirt crashing down to the tent city below. With a terrifying crack, the sudden loss of dirt dislodged huge boulders that came tumbling down the mountain as all hope. The sudden flood cut off the Amarnath entrance from the valley, stranding over 15,000 people inside or right at the mouth of the cave. Hundreds of personnel from the National Disaster Response Force were deployed from the base camp, while 2 additional teams were dispatched via helicopter along with other emergency personnel and first responders.
Along the route, 25 tents were swept away in the deluge. 3 mobile kitchens that were set up to feed the pilgrims were also demolished as the mudslide charged through the encampment. The people near the entrance of the cave were caught instantly, but the people in the camp had a few moments to react. They grabbed what they could and abandoned their tents, seeking higher ground. Once the cloudburst subsided, rescue teams started digging through the mud for bodies. Others began picking through the chaos to find their belongings, or whatever was left of them. 65 more people were stranded outside as a river of mud split the camp. Crews managed to pull 2 survivors out from the mud, while still more were buried or sent careening down the mountain. Normally, cave rescuers are trying to save 1 or maybe a handful of lives. These operations can deploy hundreds of people to dig through rock and ensure the safest route for trapped explorers. Injured cavers are placed on special stretchers, secured, and sometimes given drugs to help ease their suffering during the hours-long exit from caves. But this situation was stretched thin and far more chaotic. Crews couldn't take all the same precautions because they weren't dealing with a handful of lives. They had to save thousands. Injured people, still bleeding and broken, were sent on basic canvas stretchers to helicopters. Upon landing, doctors rushed to assess patients and start treatment. Afterward, beneath a heavy gray sky, as people somberly huddled together to mourn, dog squads came searching for bodies, and crews used thermal imaging devices to search for people trapped under the mud. The governments of Jammu and Kashmir set up a helpline for families worried about the status of their loved ones. In total, 16 people died in the moments after the cloudburst, while over 20 were injured, and 40 more went missing. Some sources later said that the total rainfall ended up being less than the threshold for a cloudburst. But if that wasn't a cloudburst, it's hard to imagine how horrible the event could have been. If the diversion wall wasn't built, it's likely the death toll would have been over 10 times as disastrous. The Indian government quickly shut down travel to Amarnath during the rescue operation, but after only 3 days, with blood still soaked into the muddy soil, the pilgrimage resumed as thousands more journeyed into the icy depths of Amarnath. This insane natural disaster is sadly all too common in India. The unique terrain of the Himalayas has made India the country with the most cloudbursts on Earth, more than double of Pakistan, which has the second most cloudbursts. This wasn't the first time a cloudburst wiped out life at Amarnath. In 1969, another huge storm killed 40 people, much like what happened this year. 3 more people died and 11 were injured when another cloudburst swept through the crowds in 2015. This time, the tragedy sparked renewed interest into creating safety nets for the pilgrims, who were ultimately inexperienced regular people trying to take on dangerous splunking in one of the most unique and unforgiving climates. Some have called for improvements to weather forecasting, additional satellite warnings, and even cave warning systems similar to those used to save people from flash flooding inside of caves. In the wake of the Amarnath Cave disaster, the Surveyor Director General of India finally contracted cavers to explore the depths of Amarnath and map out the cave's hidden interiors. The team used digital contour mapping to get accurate readouts of the depths of Amarnath. DCM is another name for LiDAR, or Laser Imaging, Detection, and Ranging, a technique that uses lasers to measure the surface details of the rock. If future explorers can find the source of the water, they can build a diversion path so that future cave flooding will exit away from the entrance. Over 50% of the project was completed by September 12th, but additional information has been sparse since the cave is a holy site. The interior of Amarnath Cave isn't as deadly as many of the other notorious caves, but that hasn't stopped it from causing more death than any other. On top of dealing with sudden floods that can wipe away thousands of travelers in an instant, pilgrims to the Amarnath Cave have had to face a different kind of enemy that most cavers have never planned for: other people. India and the surrounding countries have been locked in culture wars for some time, and this clash has spilled over into Amarnath. Some extremists have taken up arms against the pilgrims, and over the years, these militia units have committed terror attacks, violently killing a number of pilgrims. The incidences began back in 1994, when terror groups started threatening the pilgrims, but the groups continued to journey in peace until the year 2000. That year, at the end of the yatra journey, armed militias swarmed the base camp near the mountain, killing 28 armed civilians and 3 officers. The groups killed indiscriminately, targeting members of every faith. A year later, An extremist threw a grenade near the cave's entrance, killing 13 people and injuring 15 more. Armed guards returned fire as pilgrims fled both into the cave and down the narrow walkways leading into the valley. In the chaos, more people were killed until eventually security forces subdued the attacker and shut down the yatra. The remaining pilgrims were escorted out, flanked by soldiers, while the injured were airlifted to makeshift hospitals. In total, 13 people died and 15 more were injured. The bloodbath continued the following year in 2002 when 2 more massacres struck Amarnath. In a coordinated attack, one group of militants targeted the cave entrance, killing 2 people and injuring 3 more, while a second group struck a base camp, killing 9 and wounding 27. This time, the cave entrance was more heavily guarded, and people funneling into the cave were protected by Amarnath's massive limestone walls, which saved countless lives. The base camp was left exposed. Over a decade later, in 2017, Amarnath descended into chaos once again when extremists from Pakistan gunned down 8 more people. Other incidents included a car crash that struck a roadside kitchen that was giving away free meals to the pilgrims. This crash killed 12 people back in 2012. That same year, 117 more people died from exposure or other accidents. In 2017, another accident befell a bus carrying pilgrims who couldn't make the whole trip on foot. The bus tumbled off the road and fell 150 feet into the gorge below, killing 16 passengers instantly, and the remaining 2 died of complications in the hospital. Amarnath Cave in India is a holy site, but it's also been the cause of more deaths than any other cave in history. Much of the interior of the cave remains shrouded in mystery. How many more lives will Amarnath claim in the years to come? And how many could be saved if cavers could finally map the interior of this legendary cave? Have you ever been to one of India's revered caves? What was it like? Let us know in the comments section. And while you're there, hit those like and subscribe buttons so that you don't miss the next heart-pounding video.